All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Maiden, Voyage. We have your regular mermaids present, but we have asked an additional gorgeous long-haired mermaid from Philadelphia to join us. Her name is Lexs. She's a dear friend of mine. You can follow her on Instagram at plantsaturated. And if that's giving you any indication of what we're talking about today, it's plants.
Women face unique challenges, from glass ceilings at work to everyday personal stressors.
The Maiden Voyage podcast covers it all, offering tips and tricks for overcoming your struggles.
While this lady-hosted podcast focuses heavily on women's issues,
it's relevant for anyone who values self-improvement, equality, and badass inspiration.
We all navigate this journey together. Welcome aboard.
I think it's been all the rage right now, especially in this COVID-19, we're staying home, we're re-engaging in our spaces. People are buying plants, like so many plants. And I think plants have this like cyclical coolness or something because certain plants become very expensive while other plants stay more affordable. It's been very interesting. I've known Lexs a very long time and I did not have plants for a very long time. And I guess it was about a year ago, 2 years, was it 2 years ago maybe? You were at my house and I feel like I had my first plant and I took it from my grandmother and I was killing it. And you like so lovingly helped me fix this plant, which is still thriving today. And after that, fast forward, I have like 25 plants in my house now. I have plants outside now. I've given plants away. It like overwhelms you. It becomes this cathartic, so enjoyable process, at least it did for me, that I couldn't stop. So I would love to learn, Lexs, more about how you got into plants because I didn't tell the ladies, but you are an entrepreneur at heart. Your family started this incredible business based in Philadelphia that is thriving today. And then you pivoted a little bit and really dug into kind of this plant life. So I'd love to learn about where your enthusiasm and your love for plants kind of started.
Okay. Well, I would love to share that with you. So my love for plants started, I think it was about 6 years ago. And I was dating someone who, it was two things that I can recall that really like got me interested. So I was dating somebody and he brought home flowers one day for the garden and he asked me to help plant them. And I was like, I'm not touching that dirt. Like I was literally like, I'm not touching that dirt. And then he was like, okay, fine. So I kind of told him where to position the flowers. And like in that process, I realized that like I was interested in like designing with plants because it's very much about design when you're planting a garden. So it was that. And then my best friend's stepdad, he has like plants that are like 30 plus years old and he's always giving away his plants. So he started me with about like a bunch of like 5 plants that were babies. And I realized that I could keep them alive and I enjoyed caring for them. And it was really cool seeing them grow. And that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
Are those plants still in your house today?
Yes, they are. I think I have the bundle that he gave me are all still alive. They're pretty easy plants, but they're so much bigger than what he gave me. And it's just cool. Like I'm pretty attached to those plants. Like those plants I can't give away. Yeah. They mean something to me for sure.
And so what you said that the first plants you got were kind of easy. So I say that in quotes because everyone on this call, probably yourself included, has killed a plant. Like without a doubt, killed plants, throw them away. Like cactuses died somehow. I don't even think cactuses are supposed to be able to die. Right. Like how does this happen? What would you recommend as a first plant for someone like Carissa, not to name any names, who needs to dive into, she wants to be a plant mom, but isn't really sure where to start?
Okay. So I would recommend, I always like go to plants that are, I consider them easy care because they're low maintenance. You don't have to keep the soil moist. It's okay if the soil dries out. It's okay if you go on vacation for a month and you don't have a caretaker for them. So those are kind of the plants that I like to recommend to people. The snake plant, it's called Sansevieria. Those are easy. Literally, like you could go away for 4 months and not water it, and you will come back to a thriving plant. I started out, my starter plants that my friend's stepdad gave me was a jade plant, which is also very easy. It's a succulent type, so that is very low maintenance with watering. It's like, water literally with like once every 2 to 3 months. He also gave me a spider plant, which is really easy. Spider plants are easy. You have one, Jackie, the curly guy.
I love my curly spider.
Yeah. So, and they give off tons of babies, which I'm sure you've probably gifted to your friends by now.
I have, and I've re-gifted them to myself. I repot, I like to grow them and pot them, but we'll get into propagation in a little bit because that I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
I think that you shared with me a very unique watering style where like you like drench the pot, right? Like you remove it and you like drench it and then let it drain out. And then that's it. When I feel like a lot of people are like, they water it and then they walk away.
Yeah.
Why do you find this system of watering to be most beneficial?
So I think it's just a really kind and nice thing to do for your plants. The way I water is I look for signs. It's kind of cliche to say, but like I listen to my plants. Like I know what my plant looks like when it is asking for water. So if its leaves are droopy, I'm like, that plant needs water and it's waited for water for a very long time. So I'm going to be really nice to it and I'm going to give it a thorough watering. I'm not just going to give it a little tiny sip. I'm going to take it to the sink and I'm going to let the water run all the way through and put it back where it belongs.
And so that seems to be, that's how I water because that's how you told me to water. And I think for me, I feel like if you're doing it the other way where you're just every week giving it a little, you're probably more prone to overwater.
Correct.
Okay. Because that's how a lot of plants die.
Yes. So a lot of people, when they get into the plant world, they get frustrated because they think that they need to water. Some people think they need to water every day. Some people think they need to water once a week and it's, routine. It's not routine. It depends on the season. In the summer months, you have to water more than the winter months. So it really depends, it really depends on the plant's surroundings and environment that it's in. So you really have to like pay attention to them. So when people ask me like, how often should I water that plant? I can't really tell you. So like the best way that I can say is like, if I know what plant it is, and it's not a plant that likes to be kept on the moist side, stick your fingers 4 inches into the soil. And if you don't feel any moistness, then water. Then you're safe to water usually.
Yeah.
I have a watering related question, Lex.
Sure.
Is there a relationship between pot size and watering frequency in general for plants?
Pot size and watering frequency.
So let me give you an example. Oh, you're good. Never mind.
Sure. Yes. Give me an example, please.
Okay. So I have this guy here who's like love of my life, wonderful peace lily, who has drooped and resurrected more times than I care to admit. So new plant moms, this guy is a great option for you because I apparently can't kill it, which is great. But he's in kind of a tiny pot, I feel, for the size of his leaves. And I feel like he needs water every 3 days. And it just seems excessive. I feel like I'm certainly overwatering this plant, but not really because that's when he's, perky and beautiful. And he's a little droopy right now because I'm being a bad plant mom. So I feel like it's a small pot. Maybe he likes to be confined like that, but maybe he also needs to be watered so frequently because he's a little guy.
So, okay. One, that plant looks beautiful, and peace lilies just tend to, like, when they're just ready for water, they will just droop to the floor. So I would say you're doing nothing wrong. You're just listening to your plant when it needs water. However, if you want it to be a little easier for you, you can upgrade it to a pot that's, 2 to 3 inches bigger in diameter, and a ceramic pot. So a pot that's not porous versus a pot that is porous. So a pot that's porous, like terracotta, the moisture is going to seep out of the pot. If you plant it in a ceramic pot that's glazed, it will hold the moisture more, so you'll have to water less. So you can definitely upgrade it, but nothing too much bigger, just 2 to 3 sizes up, I would say, in diameter.
Okay, that makes sense.
Lexi, so I kind of have a follow-up question around that.
Sure.
Would you say that for every plant, it's important for them to have good drainage? Like you're saying, like a pot that's porous, but you've seen all our listeners have seen the pots with the little lip around the center to catch excess water or let it overflow if you do overwater. Would you say that that's a mandatory thing that any would-be plant mother or father should do, get a pot with drainage?
So that is like tip number 1, especially for beginners. Get a pot with drainage. And that means get a pot with a hole in the bottom so the water can seep out and not sit in the pot. Because then the roots are just sitting in the water and you're literally drowning your plant. So yes, for beginners especially, get a pot with drainage.
Now, a question on top of that. So some people I know will keep their plant in the original plastic container because it has natural drainage on the bottom, and then put that inside of a pot without drainage. Is that a good best practice, or do you recommend taking it out of the original plastic and putting it, dirt against that porous surface with a well-drained pot?
So that is like perfectly fine. I keep most of my plants when I bring them home. I don't repot them right away. I keep them in the plastic nursery pot. But that's what I call staging, like my plants. So I'll literally just put it in a prettier pot, but it's still in its plastic nursery pot. But with the watering method that, Jackie and I spoke about earlier, when you take your plant out and you take it to the sink and you water it, all the water is draining through those plastic holes.
Okay.
And then when it's done draining, you just stick it back in the pot with no hole in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good tip.
Like an emotional crisis moving my pot, like my plant from the nursery into a terracotta pot, because I was like, I know how to water it. I know what I'm doing. And I did it for my my Chinese money plant, the
Polia.
thank you, with my pilia. It is thriving in terracotta though. And I was so scared, and the stems were red, and I was like, this is broken. Somebody broke the pot. Somebody broke the plant. It wasn't me, but it's broken. I relocated in the room and put it in the terracotta, and it's the happiest thing. I'm like so proud of it. And this is where I feel like plants, and like my neighbor gave it to me. It was one of her babies. And she saw it the other day and was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that's the baby that I gave you. Like, it really is like, my whole neighbor was a bunch of these like moms that we like are sharing plants now, and we have like these emotional ties to each other. Like, her cats ate a plant that I gave her, and she like almost cried about it. Oh, it's okay. Like, another one, but like developing these like deeper friendships, because I don't know, it's like you get bored about talking about like your kids all the time or whatever. So now it's like we have these like really serious conversations about like soil and like all these great plant related tips, which leads into our next question, which is about soil. Can you interchange? Okay, I don't know. You have like a very specific, you create your own soil from other things, don't you? Like add things into your soil like peat and whatever. Like
No, not really.
I'm buying a bag of like Nutri-Grow or whatever it's called at the store.
Yeah.
But I also plant more like succulent types in succulent soil. Can you mix? Like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you create the perfect soil environment for your plant?
So I don't really get too deep into soil. Like it's just kind of like you. Like if I'm planting a succulent, I'll grab a bag of succulent soil from Lowe's or Home Depot. If I'm planting a not succulent, I'm using just regular, probably Miracle Grow potting soil in the yellow bag.
Okay.
However, like if I run out for some reason of succulent soil and I'm really anxious to plant a pot, like because of where I am in my experience with plants, I can do that, but I wouldn't recommend that for beginners because you have to get a handle on like watering first. So
like we had succulent soil and Abby was like hell bent on planting a baby. Abby's like very into the plants too. And I was like, we don't have the right soil. We don't have the right soil. We went to 3 places and everyone's out of soil. Because I guess in the current situation, everyone's planting.
Yeah.
And they don't have any more soil. We ended up thankfully getting some from our neighbor, but I was like, I'm not putting this in succulent soil, Abigail. I was like, arguing about
So
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. You're our guest.
So just to add to that, like Jackie, if you lost that fight with Abby about the succulent soil, so really you could have planted in succulent soil, but that just means that you have to water more often because succulent soil dries out faster. So you could have planted in that if you wanted to. It would be more maintenance for you because you'd have to water more.
It looks very wood chippy, and I don't feel like it drains as quickly either. I feel like it sits on the top, which drives me crazy. Maybe I'm packing it too heavy.
I don't know.
I think you're right, Jackie. It's definitely more airy. I mean, if you see like orchids like those heavy bark with like a moss mixture so that the moisture can still kind of cling a little bit, but it can breathe through the bark. So there are different plant types that need a more airy soil. Like you and Lex were saying that like doesn't retain water as much as a more like thicker soil would.
Right. Yeah.
Julie.
Yes. So from soil, I'd love to talk about food. We got the dirt, the water. Do I need to feed my plants? Can I feed all my plants the same thing? I keep seeing things on the internet about how I'm supposed to use banana peels and put them in water and then water that to feed my plant. It seems like a lot of work. What's the real skinny on feeding the plants?
Wait, does the plant have like a cramp and it needs potassium? Why are we giving it a banana?
Oh my God.
It's like a thing. We're like, oh, take your banana peel and soak it in water, and it makes this nutrient-rich plant food, and your plants love it. Or like rice water, like all of these things, which is great, but also I don't have time for that.
Right, exactly. So yeah, a lot of stuff on the internet can drive you crazy. I just like keep it pretty basic. I use the same thing for mostly all my plants. Key tip is like you only really have to feed your plants spring and summer months because most of plants like in the winter they go in hibernation, so they don't even really want food. They want less water. So most of your plants are hibernating during the winter. Spring and summer, I probably feed my plants like, I don't drive myself crazy, just really whenever I feel like it. Sometimes once a month. So I get Miracle Grow liquid plant fertilizer, and I just put a few, like 1 or 2 pumps in like a big watering can, and I'll water my plants. Or I love to use worm castings. So worm castings you can buy at any like garden center, nursery center, and you literally just sprinkle them on the top and then you water, and eventually the plant will receive that nutrients. It takes a little bit of time for this, like for it to integrate with the soil and everything, but the plants love worm castings.
What are worm castings?
Worm poop.
Okay. I had a feeling it was a nice way to say worm poop, but I just wanted to verify for all of the listeners so they know all the
worm
wonderful
poop
things we talk
is
about.
Extremely nutritious to plants.
Well, right. That's what they teach you in school, that soil with worms in it is better for plants because of,
exactly.
I guess, magic, but really poop.
magic.
Love
It is.
Or worm
It's
poop.
magic.
Terrific.
Worm poop is
Yeah.
magic.
Oh my word. I love that. Worm poop is magic. That's the headline of this episode.
I'm gonna like push us along from the worm poop. Jen, you where we were talking in a little bit of our prep last week about you were looking for a big plant, and like Lex has some really big plants. So I thought maybe you would want, because I would love to hear this too. I only have, my biggest plant is my elephant ear, and I love it, but it is not a big plant, I think, by like big plant standards. So Jen, what were you looking for? Maybe Lex can guide you down a good path here.
Well, for our listeners who are like watching the video version of this podcast, I have 2 tree-like objects in the background that are fake, spoiler alert. But I'm kind of looking for a larger structure like that, maybe about between 4 and 6 feet tall, and something that I can put in a very decorative, beautiful, like bohemian woven basket, or something to get that traditional boho vibe. So are there any big plants that are pretty easy to get that you would say grow pretty well without direct sunlight? Because maybe for some of our listeners here, they don't have space necessarily right by a window, but it's within like indirect light range, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So 2 plants come to mind. First of all, I didn't even know that this, like, people can access this on a video, this podcast. But anyway, so I will show you. So one plant is called the Monstera Deliciosa.
I was looking at that one.
It's gorgeous.
It's really, really gorgeous. This is like a mature leaf, and like, so they like split eventually and make these holes.
Wow.
And then like they start off
babies?
as like these little baby guys that don't have any holes in it. Can you see?
That is amazing.
So this is one that I would highly recommend. It's really, really easy. Like, I don't know if you can see my windows, but it's really far from my windows, and it's thriving. Another one is this Fiddle Leaf fig. So I'm obsessed with Fiddle Leaf figs, and this one is probably like 10 feet away from my window.
Beautiful.
No, what am I talking about?
Up, Lex, does the fiddle leaf grow up like a tree?
Yes, it can. I mean, any big plant you can train to take whatever shape you want. But so this started off as really bushy. So this was all leaves down here, but I was a bad plant mom and didn't water it for a while. So all the leaves dropped. So now it's like kind of taking on more of like, I don't know, a very weird, I'm just letting it go. Like, look at this little weird guy down here.
Aww,
But I'm just letting
baby.
it go. Yeah. So I love Fiddle Leaf figs, and people say they're finicky, but they're really not. You just like, they're really not.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I was actually on the call with Jackie before, and we were looking at that exact tree online, saying maybe we would try that one. So thank you. Those are 2 beautiful plants.
I have a lot of information about the Fiddle Leaf fig on my Instagram. So, and you can always DM me for those of you listening. If you join along, you can always DM me with plant questions, send me videos of plants that you need help with, anything. I get back to everyone.
Lex, can we have your Instagram handle again? Just that's a perfect moment, I think, to share it. And I would, in particular, like my mother to follow you because I bought her a fiddle for Mother's Day, and we are working through fiddle care, but she's a magician with plants as well. I think she'd enjoy it.
Awesome. So my Instagram name is Plant Saturated, all one word. And it just basically means that I'm just saturated with plants all the time.
Well, from that mini
where the
plant tour
name
we
came
just got,
from.
yeah, it looks like you've got lots of plants and greenery and wonderful living things that you're sharing your home with.
Yeah.
Do you still have your workshop?
So I do still have my work studio. I actually brought all my plants out of there, and most of them are outside right now. So I just kind of have a blank canvas to work with. So I'll probably be using that soon for, I don't know, just to be like, just an art space to have.
Yeah, and it looks like, because obviously I follow you, it looks like you've been doing a lot of more plant design in like urban settings?
I have. So I've been helping a lot of my neighbors, friends of friends, just learn about how to plant like a garden. Not a veggie garden or an herb garden or anything like that, just, flowers and plants. But I really have been enjoying the summer. Like I think that's where I love houseplants, but I love designing outside in the garden. Like it brings out just like this burst of creativity in me.
So what would you say is the biggest transition from the house plant to the outdoor garden? Because I'm having moderate success with houseplants, but once they go outside, it's over.
Like, you mean once you bring your houseplant outside?
No, once there's an outside plant to also take care of, I've never been successful for more than a few weeks.
Oh, so you're saying like you can't manage your taking care of the houseplants and the outdoor plants?
Yeah, it seems to me like the skills don't translate.
So maybe go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I love that, Julie. She's like, anything in my four walls I can keep alive, but if you're you are on your own.
I don't know what it is, but maybe they need water more. Maybe there's an app. I don't know, but whatever the tip is.
So, okay, yes, I was just trying to understand what was happening there. So yes, when you have outdoor plants, they're going to need way more water than your indoor plants. So that's probably where the issue lies. Like you can literally water your outdoor plants every single day and they're going to thrive. Versus your indoor plants, you cannot do that because you will kill them because they're not in the same growing environment.
And Julie, are you trying to put plants in the dirt outside, or are you putting potted plants outside?
Oh, girl, we're not ready for putting them in the dirt.
Okay. So, like, I have a hibiscus that I wish I could show you guys right now, but you're on my desktop. I'll take a picture so we can put it. It flowered last night. And it's so beautiful. I have 3 new hibiscus flowers. I water her every day, though, like every day, except when it rains, because it's in like this. It's a pot. It's potted, right? So it's not in the earth. It's not, we had huge rainstorms here in Pennsylvania. She's thirsty still. So I water her every day. And my fern, I have a fern. Lex, you would be amazed at all the plants I have. I have a fern on my front porch right now too, and I water her every day. Now the fuchsia in with the fern is not doing well, and I don't know why.
We have to FaceTime. I need to see what's going on in your outdoor garden.
Oh,
I want to see it.
It's real good. It's
I'm a little disappointed you're not nestled in a nook of plants, Jackie.
I know. I'm sorry. I had literally back-to-back meetings since like 1 o'clock. I did not have. I know you're.
I'm not nestled in plants either. I should be.
They're very clearly visible.
That's another question. I have this aloe.
Let me get closer.
Okay, I can get my aloe if you want. So.
Okay, I should have been like this the whole time.
That's perfect.
So I have aloe. I never water it. It's doing great.
Good job, Jack.
I don't know what to do with it. Like, am I supposed to trim it? Like, does it need them? There's no roots. I feel like I'm supposed to do something with this because it's so big.
So like, that's like, this is great because like you just said it was thriving, but you're like anxious that you have to do something with it. You don't have to do anything with it. It's thriving. It's beautiful.
Doesn't need this wood stick, but the wood stick makes me feel like, I don't know, like it looks cute. It's like an
definitely doesn't need the wood stick.
Lex, I think that's such a great moment. You just said it's thriving, but you want to do something with it, but it's thriving, so just let it be. That's like a life lesson to us all, right?
The life lesson.
Sometimes we tend to, as human beings, to like want to make things more complex than they have to be. Like, and that's also a part of, beginners. Like, they're like, they just like freak out because they think like they should be watering, but like, and then so they water and then they kill the plant. And especially in quarantine, a lot of people, like I've seen on Instagram, like they're killing their plants because they have nothing else to do but like water. So like people are over watering in quarantine.
They're loving them too much. I've done that.
So much, I'm killing it.
Yeah, I've done that to so many plants.
What is this cod?
That's a Monstera. So that is exactly the big plant back there that I just showed you that had the holes in the leaves. So
Yeah.
those are baby leaves. They don't have their holes yet. When they mature, they're going to get their holes and split. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Somebody gave this to me as a gift in their spaghetti sauce jar. And it's been living in the spaghetti sauce jar. I don't know, look at this root system happening.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
wild.
What am I
Okay.
supposed, when do I plant this?
Whenever you want. So a plant, so that's called propagating.
Yeah.
You know, taking a cutting and sticking it in water and letting that cutting grow roots. That could like live in there forever as long as you like change the water and not let it get like too murky. It could live in there literally forever. But if you want to plant it, you should plant it.
What size pot would you recommend for a root system? I mean, this is a heady root system.
Heady. So heady.
I know.
I would say probably pot it in a pot that's like 6 to 8 inches in diameter.
And it has another leaf coming.
It's awesome.
I'm so excited.
Baby.
Because the baby, right.
Monstera Deliciosa. That is an easy care plant.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, here's another question. It was sitting over here going, and it's all going this way because that's the sun. Are you supposed to rotate plants so they like stand up straight? Is that a thing?
So like you can, like with my fiddle leaf, I do like rotate it when I remember, you know, I should be rotating it probably once every week. But yes, that is a thing for some plants. Like you'll see that some plants, like they're leaning towards the window because that's the way the sun is. And plants are smart like that. So it depends. Like if you wanted to like take a certain shape, you can start rotating it so it doesn't get all lopsided if it bothers you.
I feel like we need part 2 plant training because you mentioned it a few times now. I didn't realize you like I know that ivy you can train to grow a certain way. You can like tack it up and it will grow a certain way. Are there other plants or plant families in which you should train them? And how do you do that?
Train them? Well, it's like
Why would you
meant
train a plant?
like I kind of meant like if you get like a fiddle leaf fig that's like huge and it doesn't really have any more room to grow in your home and it's like now growing and it's hitting the ceiling, you can just keep chopping off the top so that it can look normal in your home and you can have this huge plant that's not hitting the ceiling. But also that also like when you cut your plants, when you cut them back, it promotes new growth because you're actually like it sends the plant into growth mode. Like the plant actually knows that you cut it. So now it's like, oh, I have to grow more. That's exactly what the plant's thinking.
That just triggered my elephant ear. I cut off a dead, like one of the ears was like I'm dead. It declared death. And I snipped it and 2 new leaves grew in 2 weeks. And I was like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I cut the small, can you see here? I don't know what the rules are. And I feel like the moral of the story is going to be, there are no rules. Just water it when it's telling you to water it and like just buy one and lean into it, right? These are all the plant rules that I think exist. Should you cut like the smaller leaves up for that? Will it grow more? That was a bad question.
Can you bring that plant over? Is it too big now?
Really big. I don't know. I'll try. Well, it's in this like giant pot.
Oh my God, it's so pretty. So that's an Alocasia poly. and you've done so amazing with it.
You
but
scared me when I first got it. You were like, careful of bugs. I almost
Well, yeah, because that plant is prone to spider mites, but you've been doing so good with it, you haven't gotten any spider mites, which means it's so happy.
Wow.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that new stems come out of the old stems, right? In that? Yes.
That is correct.
So, like with certain plants, like you don't want to cut off the entire stem because new growth comes out of like the bottom part of that existing stem. So if you cut the whole stem off, new growth doesn't have anywhere to come out from because you just chopped off the new growth. So you see that little like
this
point, like, yeah, like wherever like the point is, it's hard for me to show you, but like
there's a new coming.
You'll see the slit in the stem, and then you're going to want to cut like above that slit.
And isn't it good, Lex, to cut at a little bit of an angle, like a 45-degree angle? Don't they say that that's less traumatic on the plant as far as like it prevents you from like hacking and like damaging the plant structure? It's like a cleaner cut.
I haven't heard that, like when you're pruning back a plant. I've heard that with like flower bouquets, like at the bottom, cut at a 45-degree angle, or when you're propagating a plant, a cutting in water.
Okay.
You want to cut the bottom at a 45-degree angle because it has more surface area to suck up more water.
Okay. Well, what about back to that real quick for our listeners that maybe have like a really big plant and they want to trim it down, like you're saying, just so the aesthetic matches, but they think it would be nice to maybe gift a couple of the branches or leaves to a friend. How exactly would they go about propagating it?
So that's a really good question. So not every single plant you can propagate in water. The Fiddle Leaf fig you can propagate in water. So like if you chop the top off, you just like stick it in water and you give it to a friend and you say, be patient. Like this, it could take you literally, anywhere from 2 to 5 months to start seeing any roots. So that's your lesson in patience. Like plants definitely teach you so much patience. But yeah, so you just literally take a cut, put it in water, and give it to a friend.
That's awesome. And for the ones that don't work that way, do you just put them directly in soil?
So some plants just you can't like propagate at all.
Okay.
Like not in water or not in soil. But like with the Fiddle Leaf fig or the Monstera Deliciosa, you can propagate it in water and you can propagate it in soil. Just like you said, you can put like a little bit, it's called rooting hormone, on the end of the cut that you made, and then just stick it in the soil. The trick to that though is when you're propagating in soil, you want to keep the soil moist until that cutting has established roots and has taken hold of the soil. So like you do not want the soil to dry out while it's, establishing its rooting system. So you just, in that instance, you just keep the soil very moist.
That feels very stressful.
I'm doing an experiment right now with a golden devil's ivy, golden Pothos. What's that called? No, a golden
golden Pothos.
Yeah, devil's ivy, right? Isn't that what it's called? Googling right now. Yeah. A golden Pothos. Yep. Okay. So yes. Is this what it is? This is what it is. This is exactly what it is. Should I share my, okay. So anyway, I have successfully propagated it in water multiple times, given them away, replanted them for myself, like really good stuff. Just gave one to my sister-in-law the other day. However, I've never done it in soil. And I had taken a root that I cut and just jammed it into the pot, and it started growing another leaf. And I was like, that ain't right. It doesn't, how's it doing that? It doesn't have any roots. And then I was like, I really wanted to see if it would work. So I cut 3 new ones. I have one in water, and I put 2 stems in dirt, and I put it outside. So I water it like just as I do my outside plants, because apparently you can grow that outside. It is really happy, it seems like, but I don't know. How do I know when it's growing roots? Do I have to try and pull it out and see and just stick it back in? Like, I don't want to mess up a chi.
Okay, so yes, golden pothos that's another easy care plant for anyone. And they're so easy to propagate in water. They're so easy to propagate in soil. And that when you put it in soil, you actually don't need rooting hormone. It literally just takes to the soil. So if you want to check, I would say when you stick the cutting into the soil, give it about 3 to 4 weeks. And then like, you don't want to pull it all the way out of the soil. You just want to give it like like a tiny tug. And if it seems like it's not coming up, that means it's rooted. So just a little gentle tug, and if it didn't come up, it's rooted.
Well, and especially if it has new growth, Jackie, if it has like a new root, that's definitely a sign too that it's taken root, because it's doing its thing. It's like getting off.
Yeah, I don't mess with stuff that's growing. I'm like, you're growing, you appear to be thriving, you're producing new life. Thank you for providing me with that new life. But I do have 2 pothos questions, actually. So I have successfully propagated my first plant.
Awesome. What is it?
It's a pothos, but it's like this really bright light green one, which was one of my like cornerstone plants. So I became a plant mom when I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I needed some refreshing in my physical environment and some like things to care for that weren't my terrible dog. I love her a lot. So that's when I became a plant mom, and this was one of my first plants in that journey. I accidentally broke her because she had one long tendril, and I watered her, and I like to water in the bathtub, and she's a hanger. And when I was putting her back up, it snapped off. And I said, well, this is the moment. This is when we see if we can make this grow and get more. So we have propagated. We have roots. We're rooting.
Look at those roots.
We're doing well. We need a little water change right now, so I'm hiding it a little.
Okay, I get that.
It gets a lot of sun, so we get a little like algae situation happening in here. So we need to like empty and scrub and all of that. But doing really well. I'll probably pot it eventually. Got some new life. This one seems to be thriving. This guy, also a pothos. She's not thriving.
She's not thriving. Let me see.
She's not thriving. She's older. She's had some roots going on in here. That we've died. We've come back.
What's happening in that jar? It looks all brown.
Right. It doesn't look.
It's like a root situation.
Oh,
they're not white.
Yeah,
I don't want it. It's yucky. No.
Do it. Yeah. Up higher. Higher.
Oh, this is a lot of water very close to my computer.
It has roots.
This guy appears to have perked up. I just relocated him. He was a little droopy, so he's perked. This guy's separate. I actually just stuck him in there because he fell off somewhere else. But not as well. So I don't know, do I trim like all of these roots off and just start fresh at this point?
So it does have some healthy, yes, it has some healthy white roots that I see at the top. All the other roots to me look like mush. So you literally just like take it to the sink and rip them off and keep those white ones on and stick it in probably a water vessel that's a little bit smaller than that, because it's just like kind of one leaf guy. Yeah.
Okay. It was thriving at one point in time, and then I moved, and it was not the best. So I wanna get her back.
You will.
I know I can do it now. So
yeah.
So that's great.
Just take off all that mush and leave the white roots.
Just out with the old and with the fresh. Great.
Out.
That's my evening activity, I think.
I love the questions for Lex. This has been so educational.
Yay. So I actually want to go back to what we were just talking, what you just said, how you brought plants into your life during a really hard time. And I hear that so much, especially from women, that's how plants come into their lives. It's truly therapy. It is my therapy. I'm going through a very difficult time in my life right now, and plants, I literally don't know what I would do without my plants and my garden. I really don't know. I don't know. And Monzi, my dog.
It's just so fun to watch them grow and like give you something new that you didn't have. I know Jackie will say in the morning sometimes she gets a little distracted first thing because she's watering her plants and checking out the babies and getting Abby in on it. But every little new leaf, I'm like, I helped you do that.
Exactly.
Or you're doing it in spite of me.
Especially like quarantine or not, it's just something new that's happening almost every day. So it takes the mundane out of your day and something new is happening. I think that's like the most exciting part.
I like what Jackie said earlier too about it. It makes your house feel less stagnant. Like suddenly there's like life and brightness, and you feel like you're bringing a little touch of the outdoors inside. And I mean, some plants even give off different like benefits. Like they help recycle CO2. They do this and that. So there are actual like stress relieving benefits to having certain plants in your house too, which I find wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. Air purification.
Yeah. Carissa, I saw you might have a question. I know we're just about done on time, but I wanted to make sure, being like a newbie to the plant world, hopefully soon, did you have any questions?
I guess because like we talked about a couple of like good starter plans, but any suggestions on good starter like potted flowers to start with indoors, or is that like off limits? Like no.
No, I mean, a lot of people ask me, they're like, do you like flowers? And I love flowers, but like most of my houseplants are just like green foliage, but every plant actually flowers. So every houseplant that I have in my house, like right now, none of them have flowers, but they have the potential to flower. So if you want flowers like off the bat, I would try like a begonia. There's so many different types of begonias and they're so easy. You just have to keep their soil like on the moist side. But they give off a lot of flowers. I'm trying to think.
Peace lily behind her.
Yeah, the peace lily.
Peace lily.
A little white flower.
They flower quickly too. So like new ones just pop up and you're like, oh, a flower. Cool. I once had a what is that called? A big geranium inside. That was really easy.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Those are beautiful.
I would not recommend a orchid. They're a bitch to take care of.
They're so stressful. I brought mine over for show and tell for this call, and I have 2 little flowers right now. I thought I killed it.
So I will have to disagree with the orchid thing. Maybe we'll have another episode on orchids, but I will tell you all about orchids.
I think they're like a rather patient plant, like you were saying before, Lex. They flower, they bloom for a few weeks, and then all the flowers die off, and then they go into dormancy for a few months before they gain enough energy to reflower again, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like years before you see your orchid flower again. But in the meantime, like you have to keep the green foliage alive because that's where it's getting its energy from the sun. So
that's real scary.
It also just feels like negative energy I don't need in my house. That's what it feels like. I don't need that negative plant energy up in my face. Well, thank you so much, Lex, for joining us. That was really fun. I feel like we could talk about, we've gone back and forth on this episode, like when we should do it, for a really long time because we have so much to say about it. And I was so thankful that you could be our expert and come on and ensure that we're doing it right. I appreciate you so much.
Of course. This was so much fun, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if you start getting like random messages from these girls and anyone else, if you're messaging Lex at Plant Saturated on Instagram, let her know you found her through our podcast so she doesn't think you're just a crazy person.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and go get yourself a plant, take care of it, be patient, give it water, give yourself water, give your plant and yourself a little grace. And we'll see you next time.
Sadly, that'll do it for this week's episode of Maiden Voyage. We'd like to thank you, our amazing listeners, because let's face it, lady life is hard. It's incredible how much we accomplish every day, and we all deserve awards just for existing. If you're watching the show, make sure that you subscribe, click on that thing for instant notifications, speak your mind in the comments, and share us with your fellow Voyagers.